Let's go, Brandon. Let's go, Brandon.
I'm lost and into the dark. Some things are better left unknown. And I'll never find you here. 'Cause no one's ever home. What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner, is it in her? What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never stays. What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner, is it in her? Is this real? Just illusion? I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. Is this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion.
Ripon Rabbit Hole is a community-driven radio. At times the community comments may reveal prejudices and other beliefs that we or our sponsors do not condone. Views or opinions expressed by the community, callers, or guests, are those of the individual speaking and do not represent the views or opinions of this site. Ripon Common Sense content is intended for mature audiences only. Enjoy.
Multiverse broadcasting system initiated.
Lasers.
Multiverse connection established.
Lasers.
Hello.
Multiverse connection secure.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
This is My Life DIY, and
Hi, this is JoJo.
Hi, my name is Oz.
Hey everybody, it's AJ the Ripon Rabbit.
This is Cynthia Sue Larson.
This is your man Meta, aka Propagate This Light,
And you're now listening
to Dark Wolf's Den.
to Dark Wolf's Den Show on Ripon Common Sense Radio.
Are ghosts real?
We had 1,000 hours of continuous communication with the spirit world.
Does time travel actually exist?
The laws of physics seem to be compatible with time machines.
You know, sometimes I wonder about reincarnation. Don't you?
A 4-year-old boy in Adelaide, Australia, has told his parents that he used to be Britain's Princess Diana.
What would happen if the world found out that aliens were real?
I didn't say disclosure would be easy, but what is the alternative?
To establish a space force as the 6th branch of the armed forces.
We have so many questions and yet so little time, so to have you here, the pleasure is all mine.
Coming to you from a secret cave, hidden deep within the wilderness. This is the Dark Wolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and we are broadcasting live across the multiverse from a secret cave hidden deep within the wilderness of Tennessee. That's right, we're ripping through the electromagnetic soup, tearing through the atmosphere, and tunneling away into your radio like a quantum particle. This is the Dark Wolf's Den Show for Thursday, October the 14th, 2021. So whether you're on the edge of reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we are going to take a field trip around the world, and we're going to visit a variety of graveyards that are said to be very, very haunted. This is going to be quite a fun episode, and right along this spooky October theme that we've been following. All that coming up and more here in just a moment, but first, let's see what kind of spooks we have over in the chat room on the YouTube channels, both the Dark Wolf's Den Show and Ripon Rabbit Hole. Who we got over here tonight? It looks like we have a few people. My grandson is here with me right now. Say hello, Bubby.
Hello.
That's right. We're going to read out the chat here over in the Ripon Rabbit Hole. Terry Taggart dropped in, and honestly, I reset both chats. I lost the first message in both chats, unfortunately. But Terry Taggart, I wrote that one down. I was able to, for my computer rebooted, said, woohoo, field trip. Yes, ma'am, a field trip. That's right. We're going to take a field trip, Bubby. Alva Yarder, hello, everyone. It's been on Facebook's Ghost Stories from the Res. Hello, Alva. Glad to see you. JoJo's waving in. Glad you're doing much better, JoJo's. Sandy B, glad to have you here. That is all over on the Ripon Rabbit Hole channel. Over on the Dark Wolf's Den Show channel, the person that said that Pete sent them, if you could go ahead and put or type some in the chat again so I could get your name. Once again, we lost that first chat there, and I would love to shout you out. I appreciate you being here. I'm glad Pete shouts us out over there. I love him to death over at the Creepy Little Book live show. As a matter of fact, over here in the Dark Wolf's Den Show, we've got a couple creepy little live chatters. But Sandy B popped into the Dark Wolf's Den, says hello, Sandy. Said this is gonna be scary. It might be a little spooky indeed. JoJo's waving in over at the Dark Wolf's Den Show, coming in with ghosts and tombstones and coffins. How fitting. Darius Munchausen, one of the creepy little chatters over there. Glad to have you here. Hail, Dark Wolf. Hail, Darius. Glad to see ya. We're going to have a ripping good time, he says. Yes, sir, we are. Carol's Cookies in the house says, hey, all. Hey, Carol. Why don't you say hi again? Hi. Hi, Carol. Gil R. Hey, glad to see you, Gil. Glad to have you here. Before the show, I was sitting with my daughter, and she pulled up what was supposed to be a live seance on TikTok. Hey, Stober51, glad to have you here, bud. And we were watching this with a spirit box, and everybody knows I'm very leery of spirit boxes. And I was watching this one. This was live. There was no cutting. There was no recording, preset. It's really hard to fake a spirit box. Not impossible, mind you, but really, really hard. And I was watching them ask questions, and this spirit box was totally answering the questions. Like, it was way too many times to call coincidence. Everybody knows I have a little issue with the whole spirit boxes thing. The fact that they use radio instead of just random sounds is my issue. Before we get into the show here, a little monologue, I guess, but let me tell you, it was absolutely amazing to watch that in action. I'm always intrigued by paranormal investigation, of course. As a paranormal researcher myself, that's kind of my thing, but it was really, really enjoyable. Celine Spooky Boo, I think, was the name of the channel. I may have that a little off, but I'm going to look into her work more. It's actually pretty interesting. And before we can head off around the world in this tour of haunted graveyards, we first must take care of two more fun little items. The first of which we call Today in History. This is a day that I would consider the birthday of a beloved character from all of our childhoods. On this day in 1926, A.A. Milne's book, Winnie the Pooh, is released. This, of course, would go on to be a sensation that is even today alive and well. Winnie the Pooh, of course, is one of the characters I grew up with and a favorite of many, and that was released on this day in 1926, and that is today's segment of Today in History. And always love some Winnie the Pooh, right? What was your favorite character? Always like Tigger, the bouncy Tigger, right? Or Eeyore, oh me, right? Good old Eeyore. I wonder if they have a Halloween one, like Winnie the Pooh visits the graveyard or something, right? Anyway, that brings us up to our next segment, a segment which we call Say What? Our Say What segment tonight is usually it's a quote of the day type segment for those who have not tuned in before, but we're going to do this one just a little bit different. If you're on YouTube, double plus, you're going to actually get some pictures in this segment. Check it out, ladies and gentlemen. We have the top 5 sayings on a gravestone, right? And these are real deal sayings found on real people's gravestones. So I've compiled a list. Let's check it out, ladies and gentlemen. Top 5 sayings on gravestones. Number 5, here lies John Yeast. Pardon me for not rising. Number 4, here lies an atheist, all dressed up with nowhere to go. Number 3, I told you I was sick. Ooh, that was kind of scary. Number 2, that's all, folks. The great Mel Blanc, the man of 1,000 voices, including Bugs Bunny. And the number 1 gravestone saying found on a real gravestone, ladies and gentlemen, I will not be back after these messages, by Merv Griffin. Those who don't know, Merv Griffin was a huge Hollywood producer, and that is today's segment of Say What? Those funny tombstones remind me of something we used to do as a kid. The pizza company Tombstone Pizza used to have a commercial that would say, what do you want on your tombstone? About the same time, there was a game called Oregon Trail that I used to play. Well, we used to play as kids. And at the end of the game, or when you die in the game, it says, what do you want on your tombstone? So we would always put pepperoni and cheese, both in the game and on the pizza, right? So your tombstone would read pepperoni and cheese. Anyway, that's kind of what that reminded me of. But speaking of tombstones, tonight we are talking about haunted graveyards. And I was on a chat last night, and somebody asked me what my topic today was going to be, and I said haunted graveyards. They said, well, every graveyard then, right? No, pretty much, but we're going to go over the more haunted than others, I guess you'd say, the more famous haunted graveyards.
Calvary Cemetery. Calvary Cemetery is a Roman Catholic burying ground split between both the Woodside and Maspeth neighborhoods in the Queens Borough of New York City, New York, that boasts an impressive 3 million burials, as well as the title of being the largest cemetery in terms of number of interments in the United States.
So with 3 million graves, that many people in a graveyard, there's bound to be some type of haunting.
The yard's history starts in 1817 when the renowned St. Patrick's Cathedral off Mulberry Street in Manhattan took interest in additional space for burial grounds upon discovering their earlier churchyard was almost at capacity. In 1845, they purchased land that held the Alsop farm, which actually already had its very own family cemetery, in order to develop a new graveyard. This new yard would take its name after Mount Calvary, where, according to the New Testament, Jesus Christ was crucified.
Little known fact, Mount Calvary, where Jesus was crucified, is also known as the place of the skull.
Many passing this area have reported orbs visible to the naked eye, personal electronics going dead almost instantly,
which seems to kind of be a mainstay when it comes to the paranormal. Whether it be UFOs or ghosts, it still tends to drain the electronic equipment for whatever reason.
In the full-bodied apparitions of soldiers roaming about, even marching together, a large number of burials from the yard's first century were related to various epidemics, and many have described feeling suddenly sick, dizzy, and having to leave the property for these symptoms to stop.
Now that is very intriguing that they would have the same type of symptoms as the ones that passed away. I would argue that these are most likely the more empathic people, the ones that can pick up on the energies a little more so than others. This time picking up on the energies of the reason of death, which most likely was a sickness of some kind.
Lastly, reported all across Calvary are high EMF levels, EVPs, disembodied voices, strange mists that float with seeming sentience, and a range of ghosts clad in clothing or uniforms spanning the ages.
And something tells me that we're going to hear about a lot of orbs and EVPs tonight.
Silver Terrace Cemetery. Silver Terrace Cemetery is a series of historic boneyards located off the steep and iconic hillside of Virginia City in Story County, Nevada, that was once separate burying grounds for various families and groups from town, but that's now preserved as one large popular travel destination. Virginia City first developed as a boomtown in 1859 with news of the local Comstock lode, the first significant silver deposit discovery in the country, after which numerous mining operations were established through the area.
And we all know how dangerous mining is, especially back in the days before the safety standards that we now have.
Over the years, and throughout all yards, a number of odd occurrences have been reported by staff, tourists, and officials. Many report a general feeling of unease, as if multiple unseen presences are always near, and several accounts tell of shadowy apparitions that roam after the sun goes down.
And a graveyard is like the one place I expect to see shadowy apparitions, right? In a house or going down the road, it might be one thing, but in a graveyard, it's kind of like the place, right?
As well as of ghosts sighted literally rising from their graves. The translucent apparitions of a woman and of a young girl have been sighted sometimes together.
That's something else I'm keeping an eye out for tonight is the woman in white. I'm expecting we're probably going to run across that at least once or twice.
Sometimes separately. In legend tells that several headstones throughout the yard glow unnaturally at night. Many visiting Silver Terrace have reported orbs in the backgrounds of their photographs.
I've always been a person that's kind of discounted the orbs concept, just for the fact that there could be anything in the air from bugs to dust to whatever the case may be. But with that said, the fact that they show up in so many different case files, it kind of makes it hard to ignore after a while, right? It becomes common sense to look at things like that. I got a question, guys. Have you guys ever caught orbs in your photos? Orbs that you can't explain. Not you're in the middle of a dust storm and there's 1,000 orbs around. I think we can explain where those might have came from. But have you guys seen orbs in your photographs? Go ahead and put a 1 if you've caught activity like that before. Go ahead and put a 2 if you've never caught such activity. And I don't even know what to say for 3. So it's kind of a 1 or 2 for this one, guys.
Extreme cold spots, disembodied voices, and the constant feeling of being watched or followed. Lastly, the ghost of an old groundskeeper, purportedly sad over the state the cemeteries are in, has been sighted tending his duties from life, as well as scowling at the living.
And that is something that we've seen over a number of case files, at least for the last couple months, are these ghosts that seem to have a close affection to whatever the building or place was that they used to caretake for, some being hotels, this particular one being the caretaker of the cemetery that decided he liked it so much that, well, he was dying to get in and wanted to stick around when he got there, right? Just to make sure everything's okay from the spirit side.
Lin Yi Chung Manoa Chinese Cemetery. Lin Yi Chung Manoa Chinese Cemetery, more often and simply referred to as Manoa Chinese Cemetery, and located off Pakanu Street in Honolulu on the Hawaiian island of Oahu, boasts the title of being the oldest, largest, and most historically significant Chinese cemetery in all of Hawaii. Interestingly enough, land the yard now sits on once held the summer home of King Kamehameha the Great and his queen Kahumanu. The graveyard is said to be plagued frequently by paranormal entities known as night marchers.
And if the night marchers sound familiar to you, they should, because we covered them on the State of Mystery Hawaii episode just a couple weeks ago. I was actually kind of hoping that would come up on this list when I heard the Hawaii graveyard, so we aren't going to spend too much time on this one. Once again, we've already heard the story of the night watchers once, so I don't want issues over here right now. There's the YouTube, or yeah, there's the YouTube. Okay. So once again, my apologies. I am working on getting this fixed. We're having some major technical glitches here. I'm getting some major echo across the radio. And my station manager is about to lose his bloody mind, and I do apologize. If we can figure out how to get this echo fixed. No sound, no sound, no... Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, so it looks like the audio is fixed on the YouTube. The radio, for some reason, is doing double audio, and I cannot figure out for the life of me why that is the case. So, my sincere apologies to those listening worldwide. Hopefully, we can get this fixed, and I think maybe, if I'm lucky, that fixed it all. Moonchild, welcome. Alvi Yarder, great to see you here. Sick Tut, great to see you. Again, I do apologize, guys. I hope we get this fixed very, very shortly. Trying to check my radio feed real quick. I know, not the best show tonight, and I do apologize for that. Maybe Okay, they said they're getting audio again on that side, but I've still got an echo, so maybe we can get this sorted here soon. Bear with us just a couple minutes, ladies and gentlemen. I do apologize. I see a couple ones in the chat rooms here that they've caught orbs. Have you guys ever caught an orb? The stream is haunted, right? Haunted graveyards, of all the streams that have issues, this would be the one, right? But we can power through and have fun with this and just see if we can't get this going. I do apologize once again. We will continue to probably have some YouTube glitches as we try to continue to see what's going on the radio end of things. But what we were talking about a moment ago here, and of course a moment ago we were just talking about the night marchers. Once again, I'm not going to get too deep into that. Basically, it's a procession of dead warriors that walk through the islands at night. And if you are within their presence, you're supposed to lay flat on the ground until they pass. Again, for the details, check out previous shows. But beside the Night Marcher, there actually is a variety of other paranormal activity that happens in the same graveyard. Activity that we've heard at least a couple times tonight already.
Also reported across the burying grounds are disembodied voices, inhuman noises, and a range of full-bodied apparitions. These apparitions have appeared so real at times that they've resulted in suspected break-in calls to the police, who always arrive just in time to watch said ghosts vanish before their eyes.
And that goes back to something we've mentioned a number of times on this show. In graveyards, in battlegrounds, normally we find this activity. Like last night, the idea that they could have been reenacting, I can't get my words right tonight, reenacting the different battles of the war. However, when the person is watching, they literally turn to smoke right in front of them, or when the person asks the grounds goes back to that same thing where we're seeing these full real as to be that, just as real as you, me, and everyone else.
Several have described witnessing what appears to be a ghostly ball of fire that floats over cemetery grounds, and that's thought to be either a good or bad omen, dependent on story. And in the children's section, many report disembodied crying, laughter, and small silhouettes that have been known to disappear when approached. Lastly, one tree on site is said to hold a portal to the afterlife, and a number of local accounts tell of instances in which it spontaneously burst into flames.
I've heard of human spontaneous combustion, but I've never in my life heard of a tree bursting into flames, which I find really intriguing that they say the souls reside in that tree, because if you know anything about the weeping willow tree, that's also said to be one of that same type. A lady gave my mother one when she worked at a nursing home, and we planted it, and we could not get it to grow good for about a year and a half. Then the lady passed away, and it shot straight through the ground, straight up, and was very vibrant ever since. I believe the tree still stands there to this day. And call me crazy, but I swear I could make out faces in that thing, right? Our next story tonight actually comes to us from My Life DIY. She pulled a slick one on me the other day. She sent me a video of her driving down the road past a place called Bachelor's Grove, and I wasn't quite sure what she was showing me at the time. She never directly mentioned what it was about. So my daughter and I got to researching, and my daughter pulled up Bachelor's Grove Cemetery to find out that this is one of, if not the most haunted cemetery in all of Chicagoland.
Bachelor's Grove Cemetery. People get the hair that stands up on the back of their neck and on their arms, goosebumps all over the place.
I've been touched, I've been tripped, I've been bitten, I've been clawed.
And of course, that is not typical behavior for ghosts. That's more of a poltergeist activity.
At first glance, Bachelor's Grove Cemetery looks like a quiet country graveyard. A lovely little place to rest in peace. So what makes it scarier than your average cemetery? Years of violence and neglect have transformed this hallowed ground into a haunted playground.
It's an isolated cemetery in the middle of a forest preserve, and that in itself can be pretty terrifying to some people. Now you add to that the fact that there are things that happen here that don't normally happen in your everyday world.
Opened in 1833, Bachelor's Grove was well maintained for decades. But the surrounding neighborhood became a hotbed of violence.
Just behind us is the Midlothian Turnpike, where Al Capone would shoot people and then dump them into the pond directly behind us. People have been killed almost on the premises of Bachelor's Grove Cemetery.
And as we've said, every time we have covered ghosts or ghost stories, the trauma for some reason plays a huge part in creating a haunting. I don't know if it's the emotional connection or the trauma itself, but for whatever reason, that tends to be a major factor when it comes to that.
In the early 1970s, the cemetery was abandoned, and the once sacred ground became a party spot for local kids.
They would literally topple the gravestones over. In some cases, they would actually dig up coffins out of the ground and open them up and desecrate the graves.
There's probably hundreds of graves here, and there's probably less than 10 actual markers still in their proper locations.
Many believe vandalism is what woke the dead of Bachelor's Grove.
Maybe the spirits are restless because they feel like they're being disrespected, that they're not being left in peace, and maybe they're active to warn people, to scare people out.
And this reminds me of the caretaker stories that we've heard at least once tonight and over a multitude of times, that they're there to watch over the building. These spirits seem to be protecting their final resting place, as it has been horribly vandalized over the years.
It's working. Take the disturbing case of the wandering farmer. You see, in the early days of Bachelor's Grove, a local farmer was hired to maintain the land.
As he was plowing the field that he was working on, his horse started to get caught into that pond. He was dragged down further and further towards it, got caught up in the rains, and ended up dying. His ghost is seen on a regular basis.
We had spent a rather uneventful day here, but just at twilight, we were just about to leave the cemetery, and we heard branches breaking along the back edge of the fence. We never saw anything. When I got home, that's when the hair really stood up on my neck, because as I was looking at the pictures, there was one picture of this luminous horse and rider along that back edge of the fence.
What I find really interesting about this particular case is the horse and the rider are there. You don't see a lot of animal ghosts, right? Every now and then you get a report of a ghost dog, but even that is very rare. In this case, it's the horse and the rider, even though the horse died much later, remember. The man was killed on the horse survived. It ran through the water just fine, so very intriguing point to this one. But you remember earlier I mentioned the lady in white, and how the lady in white is a common trope that's seen in a lot of haunted areas, cemeteries being no different. And actually here is a story here in Bachelor's Grove of a lady in white along with the farmer.
But the phantom farmer isn't the only disrespected spirit that won't stay put in Bachelor's Grove.
One of the most unusual sightings here in the cemetery is of a woman in a white gown of some kind.
The lady in white has been seen here throughout the years. I think the single fact about her, though, that makes her such an interesting ghost is that she looks nearly as real as you or I do, only you can see through her.
And from the legends that I've heard, she can only be seen on a full moon night, and she's holding a baby of some type.
Perhaps the most convincing evidence of the White Lady surfaced in 1991. Chicago native Judy Fells was on a haunted tour of Bachelor's Grove when she snapped what she thought was an innocent photo.
The first time I had gone through my stack of photos, it didn't see anything out of the normal. It just looked like the cemetery. The second time I went through, I happened to see in the corner of the picture this lady sitting on the headstone, and I almost jumped through the ceiling.
The image does show a woman in white with long blonde hair, sitting in profile, semi-transparent on the tombstone.
All I know is that it's not me, myself, or my mother, that there was no one else here at the time. When it was taken, there was no other females here.
Because of the incredible visual detail of that particular photo, it has been seen in the Chicago Sun-Times and throughout, and is, in my opinion, probably the best existence of life after death.
So this lady in white has produced one of the most famous ghost photos of all time. And at a time for the first half, ladies and gentlemen, as that music means, we've got to go ahead and take a network break right here. So my name's Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and you're listening to the Dark Wolf's Den radio show, exclusively on Ripon Common Sense Radio Network, the Ripon Rabbit Hole. We'll be right back with the second half after these messages. Don't you touch that dial. That's right.
We gotta stoke the fires and run off the men in black. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
Oh yeah, Jerry Hicks on a Thursday night. Hi everyone, it's AJ, the Ripon Rabbit. Are you enjoying tonight's Dark Wolf's Den radio show, Haunted Graveyards? I know I am. If you are and you haven't done so already, please make sure to thumb up that video, hit that subscribe button, and ring that bell. You'll get our notifications every time we go live. We're here every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights, bringing you the very best of common sense radio, the Ripon Rabbit Hole. I'll return again tomorrow night, Friday, October 15th. Come along with me for Freaky Friday, a freaky journey down the rabbit hole of creepy, freaky, and downright scary tales you won't want to miss. Tomorrow night, Friday, October 15th, starts at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, as all shows do. Then Saturday night, come along as we dive down and explore the craziest Halloween costumes. Do you know what you're going to dress up as? If you don't, you might want to pay attention to all of the crazy costumes we're going to share with you Saturday night, including a few do-it-yourself, low-cost, budget, money-saving ideas. Great Halloween costumes I've got prepared to share with you again Saturday night, October 16th. Then we'll end out the weekend right together Sunday night, October 17th, with a look at trusting but verifying. It's been a hot topic here with our more recent Common Sense Council broadcasts, and some of the articles we've been talking about in our little tiny town of Ripon, Wisconsin. How to trust but verify in a world and an age of dis and misinformation and fake news. Just how exactly do you verify the information that's put in front of your face so that you're not blindly following the blind? It's going to be a great way to end out the weekend together right with you. Sunday, October 17th. Again, all shows start at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. If you haven't done so already, you can hop on over to our website, riponrabbithole.com. That's RIPONRABBITHOLE.com. There you can sign up for your exclusive Backstage VIP pass. It's going to give you unfiltered access down the rabbit hole to our exclusive privatized social media network. It's absolutely free to join. It always will be. It's our community-generated press, so you can take advantage of groups and forums, and you get your own social media wall that's not controlled by the big tech media guys under the guise of free speech. So I invite you to pay attention to Ripon Common Sense at riponrabbithole.com. We'll return to tonight's October 14th broadcast of Haunted Graveyards with the Dark Wolf's Den show, hosted by, of course, Jerry Hicks. You're listening to the Ripon Common Sense Radio Network, the Ripon Rabbit Hole.
Reestablishing multiverse connection. Connection reestablished and secure.
This is My Life DIY, and
Hi, this is JoJo. Hi, my name is Oz.
Hey everybody, it's AJ the Ripon Rabbit.
This is Cynthia Sue Larson.
This is your man Meta, aka Propagate This Light.
And you're now listening
to Dark Wolf's Den.
The Dark Wolf's Den Show on Ripon Common Sense Radio.
If you were meant to be controlled, you would have come with a remote, but you didn't. And that's why you listen to the Dark Wolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and welcome back to the second half of the Dark Wolf's Den Show for Thursday, October the 14th, 2021. So whether you're on the edge of reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just tuning in tonight, you have missed a plethora of really awesome and really haunted graveyards so far, and we've got a plethora more to go. With that said, before we jump back into it, I was just over on the riponrabbithole.com, RIPONRABBITHOLE.com, for those who aren't listening on our radio player over there already. If you go to the front page, there's some really interesting articles on the front page, especially if you're a traveler. One about a judge ordering something to do with American Airlines or United Airlines, and a way to send a message to the board of directors of Southwest Airlines. So if you're interested in the current events going on and would like to have a bit of a say or catch up with the latest news, make sure you come on over and check us out. We would very much appreciate it. We keep the featured news updated anytime news breaks. Also, if you missed it last night, AJ did a Common Sense Council show. Tuesday night. My apologies that I had to miss that. We did have a bit of a scheduling conflict. But do check out that show. It is absolutely something you'd be interested in, once again, if you're interested in current events. But the events we're talking about tonight aren't so current. They're currently happening, but they're happening because of things that happened long, long ago, at least most of them. And that is, of course, haunted graveyards. A lot of graveyards are currently haunted, and we're going to continue to cover those starting on this side of the break with Kansas. So we're going to take our field trip from Nevada to Hawaii to Chicago, and now we're headed to Kansas.
Stoll Cemetery, Douglas County, Kansas, United States. This Kansas cemetery has garnered the name the Gates of Hell, which should tell you pretty much everything you need to know about it.
I don't know about you guys, but I definitely would not want to visit, let alone be buried in a place called the Gates to Hell.
The graveyard has a long history of associations with the occult, and many people began to believe the rumors swirling around it after a piece was published in the University of Kansas student newspaper in 1974 saying that the devil visited Stoll 2 times every year, on Halloween and during the spring equinox.
Spread like wildfire.
The legend went so crazy it could have been a movie plot, launching more fiction, like the Pope supposedly refusing to fly over the town.
You heard that right. A cemetery so scary that the Pope refused to fly over the entire town because that's where it's set.
Since then, many visitors have reported strange happenings at the cemetery, including lapses in memory from their visits. If that isn't creepy, we don't know what is.
And that's another aspect that you really don't find in haunting cases, is a lapse of memory in the case. Whether it be of the sighting or whatever the case may be, you don't generally tend to have memory issues induced from these. However, in this case, it seems to be.
Glasnevin Cemetery, Dublin, Ireland.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we are taking our field trip international, a trip over to one of my favorite places that I do hope to visit one day, which is, of course, Ireland.
Some of Ireland's most famous figures are buried at Dublin's Glasnevin Cemetery. The site is aware that they have a reputation for being haunted, with the museum affiliated with it even offering a ghastly Glasnevin exhibit. Some stories of hauntings are harrowing, but others are simply heartbreaking. Glasnevin is that there's a ghost of a dog who stayed by the tomb of his master, Captain John McNeill Boyd, and died of starvation. Now, area.
And I did mention earlier how rare it was to get a haunting of a animal like a dog, though the dog ones are from time to time there. So we've had a horse and a dog tonight. More animal ghosts tonight than I've heard about in a long time. It's funny, you go over hundreds of thousands of case files, and all of a sudden you come across 2 or 3 that have these really weird, like, matching pieces, right? And I hope you guys have enjoyed your time in the beautiful land of Ireland as we jump down now to the lockdown land of Australia, the home of tyranny right now.
Rookwood Cemetery, Sydney, Australia. You don't necessarily think of creepy things happening in the land down under, but Australia is home to more haunts than you would think.
Actually, I disagree. Every time I think of Australia, I think of everything on that island is made to kill you and wants to do just that. Most of it is incredibly creepy, right? Especially the government.
In particular, Rookwood Cemetery in Sydney is notable because more than 1 million people are buried there. Odds are at least a few of them have to be ghosts with those kind of numbers. But the reason people associate Rookwood with the ghost realm is that 2 spiritualists, the Davenport brothers, are interred there and are said to act as a link between the world of the living and the world of the dead.
Now, I don't know how much faith I put into that particular reason. It may be haunted for the fact that it's got over 1 million souls there, or bodies anyway. So that would make a little more sense to me than having brothers who were spiritualists that happened to be buried there. I'm pretty sure they're not the only ones that had a gift that are buried in that cemetery. So we need to go ahead and vacate Australia before we get locked down and stuck in their tyrannical ways down here. And we're going to jump back to the USA, to good old Georgia.
Colonial Park Cemetery, Savannah, Georgia, United States.
And I hope the teleporter's working well, that we haven't lost anyone or had anyone drop off there. We have a lot of paranormal energy going on tonight, so all these graveyards we're visiting, I hope it's working just fine. We've only had a couple issues with it. Only lost a couple people. If we could just figure out how to get them back now.
Savannah, Georgia is known for being one of the most haunted cities in America, and it's a reputation that's totally justified. The city is home to many notable and historic cemeteries, all of which have their own stories of hauntings, but Colonial Park is the most renowned.
Now, I am going to caveat this with saying that I am surprised, and I've said this a lot, I am surprised all of the South is not haunted. Due to activities in the Civil War, the amount of bloodshed that has been had down in the South of the USA is, especially in Georgia, is utterly insane. So any area of the South would not surprise me at all being haunted.
In the early 1800s, many residents of the city fell victim to the yellow fever epidemic and were buried in mass graves at Colonial. Over the years, when space ran out, plots were moved around and many bodies were exhumed and transferred to other locations. The dead do not like to be displaced, so it's no surprise they stick around to haunt the place.
And we know messing with bodies and displacing bodies from their interned rest does tend to kick up a haunting. For whatever reason, disturbing it brings about that energy. In this case being no different. That's why you do not build a house over an Indian burial ground, for instance.
La Recoleta, Buenos Aires, Argentina.
From Georgia down to Buenos Aires, I once again hope the teleporter is working well.
Some graveyards are said to be generally haunted by spirits, and others have more specific stories associated with them. La Recoleta in Buenos Aires is one of the latter, with a legend telling the story of Rufina Cambaceres, a young girl who was purportedly buried alive at the turn of the 20th century. Days after her funeral, an employee allegedly noticed something amiss at her gravesite and eventually found scratch marks inside her coffin. The intricate tomb that is now there was apparently commissioned by her parents to commemorate what happened to her.
So either we have a vampire here or somebody that got locked into a grave and was still alive. Either way, that is really, really creepy.
Highgate Cemetery, London, United Kingdom.
So now we move from Buenos Aires over to London, England. We've only got a couple more left, folks.
Considering London's long and storied history, it makes sense that there are so many locations in the city that are associated with the spirit world. Highgate Cemetery is the burying place of many noted figures, including Karl Marx and members of the Dickens family. But the graveyard isn't said to be haunted by the ghost of communism.
No, it seems the spirit of communism is trying to haunt us all right now, right?
But rather by a spectral being known as the Highgate Vampire.
I'm sorry, what, Rebecca? A vampire? I thought that was that last story.
There have been many sightings of a 7-foot-tall figure with unsettlingly hypnotizing eyes, and that's enough for us to never visit after dark.
And what a perfect season to run across not one, but 2 vampire stories.
Resurrection Cemetery, Chicago, Illinois, United States.
And it looks like we have made it back around to Chicago again.
Known as Chicago's most famous ghost, Resurrection Mary has a reputation that has lasted for decades.
And this is yet a in white ghost that we keep running across.
Beginning in the 1930s, reports were made of men picking up a strange female hitchhiker near the Willowbrook Ballroom and Resurrection Cemetery.
Soon, reports were coming in of a strange spectral girl wandering Archer Avenue. Resurrection Mary. Some claim her spirit is desperately searching for someone to lead her back to Resurrection Cemetery.
The young woman reportedly wears a white dress and is strangely silent, always asking to be dropped off at the cemetery. Of course, as the story goes, this is a figure who was actually killed along that stretch of road many years ago. Ghost hunter Richard Crow asserts that he is aware of dozens of reputable stories of sightings of Mary.
But when you come up with a story like Resurrection Mary, where we have dozens of reports spanning decades, I think you've got to go a long way to trying to undermine all that massive documentation.
And once again, once you get a big enough stack of case files, it's just common sense to start looking at the things that they share, the qualities that they share, which is something we do at this show pretty much every week. That's kind of one of the points of this show, right? Paranormal Talk Radio with a common sense twist.
The Valley of the Kings, Luxor, Egypt.
How many of you have wanted to visit Egypt? Well, here's your chance on this radio field trip. We're going to take a quick stop by a place that I really didn't expect a haunting, though I don't know why that would be so out of place considering all of the mystery that Egypt holds to begin with, right?
The world has long been fascinated with the burial practices of the ancient Egyptians, and of course, many eerie tales associated with them have followed. The Valley of the Kings in Luxor was long used as a burial site for prominent Egyptians, who were said to put curses on their tombs in order to keep potential grave robbers at bay. The tomb of Tutankhamun, better known as King Tut, is particularly associated with strange happenings, with many deaths being attributed to the area because of the mummy's curse, which is said to strike down anyone who disturbs his tomb.
They also left him the kind of protection other pharaohs would kill for. A curse that would make even skeptics tread lightly.
And we have talked about King Tut more than once on this show. I don't really believe that this particular curse is really all that real, considering all the deaths that are attributed to it happened over a 12-year period. That's a lot of time. If it had happened, within a year or so of everything happening within a year or so of opening the tomb, fine. But no, I don't think the King Tut curse is as scary as it's been made out to be. And while we are still in the good old US of A, we've got one more case file.
Westminster Burial Ground, Baltimore, Maryland, United States. You probably will not be surprised to learn that the cemetery where Edgar Allan Poe is buried is totally haunted. The Westminster Burial Ground, which is sometimes referred to as the Old Western Burial Ground, is home to many famous Americans, though Poe is the most prominent. Though there are many tales of eerie happenings in this spot, one of the most terrifying is the story of the Skull of Cambridge, which is allegedly the skull of a long-dead minister that occasionally screams unendingly despite being surrounded with cement. We'll pass on visiting, thanks.
Disembodied voices isn't completely out of the norm for a haunting, right? Disembodied screams, that's a little different, but disembodied voices, once again, we've heard that in almost every single case file tonight, so almost makes it more common than the exception to the rule, right? But what do you guys think? Do you think that there are more than a ton of haunted cemeteries around the world? Or like in the beginning, like I mentioned, I was talking to someone last night who said, oh, well, every cemetery, right? Well, yeah, pretty much. But in the end, ladies and gentlemen, all you can do is look at the evidence, apply a little common sense, and...
You be the judge.
That's right, boys. we got to close it out. That's right, that's it for this episode of the Dark Wolf's Den Show for Thursday, October the 14th, 2021. So whether you're on the edge of reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Ladies and gentlemen, the den may be closing, but don't you worry. Now that we've kicked it off, the weekend fun has only just begun. That's right. Make sure you tune in tomorrow, Friday, October 15th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, for an all-new episode of the Ripon Rabbit Hole live show. That's right. On Friday, he's going to be talking about a Freaky Friday. He'll go over a number of creepy, freaky, and downright scary tales to fit the holiday season. And then on Saturday, October 16th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, AJ the Ripon Rabbit comes back once again for another episode of the Ripon Rabbit Hole live show. This time he's going to be talking about crazy costumes. On his thumbnail here, he's got the Plague Doctor costume, one of my favorites, actually. But what is the main costumes of this year? The scariest one I can think of is Ugly Joe Biden, but you know, that's just me. That's very, very scary indeed. But what is your costume selection for 2021? AJ will be discussing all that and more on Saturday, October 16th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, on the Ripon Rabbit Hole live show. Then on Sunday, October 17th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, he'll be back to round the weekend out right with one last episode of the Ripon Rabbit Hole live show. He'll be talking Sunday about trust but verify. I'm a very trusting person, and probably to a fault, to the point that I don't verify that which I should. But that is very, very important part of trust, is being able to verify what is being said, right? Something that I probably should do more of myself, and we all should do our own verification and fact-checking, because we know the ones that they call fact-checkers don't understand what facts actually are, right? Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, AJ will be discussing all that and more on Sunday, October 17th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, as he rounds out the weekend right with one last episode this weekend of the Ripon Rabbit Hole live show. And if you are missing any episodes we've done and would like to catch us on demand, you can do so on YouTube, of course, or you could go over to the riponrabbithole.com. That is RIPON RABBITHOLE.com. Over there you're going to find a plethora of fun stuff, mainly the on-demand section under the Listen Live, where you can listen to all of the previous shows we've done all the way back to our very first episodes, which my first episode, my pilot episode, I will tell you guys, is cringeworthy. Absolutely. If you want something to listen to like that, go check that one out. And there's so much more over on that website. I'm over there right now, as a matter of fact. You could drop down the rabbit hole and click on the wall over there. That is our exclusive social media section over there. You can drop information you'd like to share with the rabbits, and it won't be fact-checked and gotten rid of like the over there. We don't have that over here, so come on over and drop us a line. But in order to use the Ripon Rabbit Hole, you're going to have to sign up for that Backstage Pass. Really simple, absolutely free, always will be free. Just sign up, and it will not only give you access to the entire site, but you'll also receive an email every Wednesday afternoon with all the Dark Wolf's Den shows and Ripon Rabbit Holes for the entire weekend long. So you'll know what's coming up and be able to share that with your friends and family also. But while after you get your pass and while you're on the site, if you've already dropped down the rabbit hole and scrolled down the wall and see what all's over there, and you've already been by the on-demand section and listened to a couple old shows, you can go to the home page. And you know what, guys, I don't know if you're like me, but about dinner time each night, I don't know what I'm going to cook. and I'm always looking for new, fresh recipes. Well, if you scroll down the homepage of the RiponRabbitHole.com, there are a plethora of wonderful and amazing recipes to choose from. So from air fryer recipes I'm looking at right now, diabetic air fryer recipes, to pulled pork barbecue and salads and soups, so much to choose from. So come on over there and scroll down the front page if you're looking for perhaps some dinner or even snack ideas, right? So we've got everything, breaking news, recipes, groups, on demand, we've got it all. Come on over and check us out. Once again, that's RiponRabbitHole.com. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and you've been listening to the Dark Wolf's Den radio show, exclusively on Ripon Common Sense Radio Network, the Ripon Rabbit Hole. On behalf of AJ the Ripon Rabbit, Chick Mandela Effect, Michael Musco, Walt House, everybody involved in Ripon Common Sense Radio, as well as Tom Bayless and Red Shed Studios for this incredible music. Hit it, Tom. If you're looking for a custom soundtrack for your next project, make sure you check out Red Shed Studios. Links in the description. On behalf of all these folks, as well as our incredible mod team on both YouTube channels, my name is Jerry Hicks, and remember, until next time, stay awake, but dare to dream. That's right. Good night, everybody. Howl! Yeah, that's right, Bubby. Let's go, Brandon.
I'm lost and into the dark. Some things are better left unknown. And I'll never find you here, 'cause no one's ever home. Oh, what a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner, is it in her? What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never stays. What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner, is it in her? Is this real? Just illusion? I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion. Is this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion.
for you guys listening over on the radio. It only took us the whole show to get it figured out. I do appreciate your patience if you've made it through all the way to the end of this show. We had a lot of issues tonight. I do sincerely apologize. Those on YouTube, I actually had a load of pictures, but I was so busy trying to figure out the radio issues that I wasn't able to show the pictures at the quote of the day like I mentioned. Again, sincerely apologize. Not our best show tonight, but it's a learning experience, and always our best show will be our next show. On that note, I want to do one more thing. If you are still here, you know what's coming. Same thing as last night, ladies and gentlemen. Practice with me. When things are looking crazy, when someone tells you a blatant falsities or anything the mainstream media says, there's a really quick answer to that. All you have to do is look at them right in the eye and say, let's go, Brandon. So that's what we're going to do real quick. I want everybody out there listening worldwide, across the radio, across the YouTube, do it with me real quick. We're going to do it 3 times, starting at 3. 1, 2, 3. Let's go, Brandon. Let's go, Brandon. Let's go, Brandon. Good night, ladies and gentlemen.